Deep in the Congo Basin, locals whisper of Mokele Mbembe, a massive, long-necked creature said to haunt the swamps and rivers. Sightings trace back centuries, with tales told by the Baka people and early missionaries.
For over a century, explorers have vanished into the mist of the Congo Basin, chasing trails of a creature said to defy extinction, the Mokele Mbembe. Locals call it a living dinosaur. Scientists call it a myth. Yet now, the sightings are surging again. The monster the world has been searching for isn't the one rising from the river.
An animal that they call Mokele Mbembe, and he's this gigantic dinosaur-type brontosaurus animal. He's got a long neck.
It's the one humanity has unleashed, and its horror is far greater than any prehistoric beast. Hunting the living dinosaur. For centuries, before any Western explorer ever found their way through the tangled green curtain of the Congo Basin, the legend was already old. It lived in the ancient oral traditions of the Baaka and Bantus peoples, passed down around crackling fires in forest clearings. They spoke of a massive beast, a master of the murky waterways, a creature so powerful it had been given a name that commanded respect, the Mokele Mbembe. That name, in the local Lingala language, means one who stops the flow of rivers. Imagine something so great, it could literally plug a river with its body. The outside world first caught a whisper of this deep secret in 1776. A French missionary named Abbé Liévin Bonaventure Proyard was working in the area when he recorded stories of a mysterious animal leaving tracks almost a meter wide pressed into the jungle floor. It was a fascinating mention. But the legend truly crystallized for the West in 1913 when German captain Ludwig Freiherr von Stein zu Lausnitz returned from his colonial surveys in what is now Cameroon. His report was precise and startling. Local villagers told him of an enormous reptile, roughly the size of an elephant, with a long, flexible neck, a powerful tail, and most importantly, a horn protruding from its head. The description wasn't vague, but it was a perfect match for a sauropod dinosaur, a beast that should have vanished 65 million years ago. Based on these consistent accounts, a chilling profile of the creature emerged. Here is the part that truly gets you thinking. Its behavior. The creature was allegedly a strict vegetarian, feeding only on riverbank plants. Yet, it was fiercely territorial and, according to local tradition, would attack and kill humans who ventured too close. Most importantly, it would never eat its victims. This suggested something beyond simple animal predation. It implied intelligence, a sense of purpose, a guardian actively enforcing its domain. These consistent, detailed accounts, stretching back centuries and across multiple indigenous groups, were too specific to dismiss as simple tales. This transformed the Mokele Mbembe from a local superstition into the ultimate, tantalizing target for the new field of cryptozoology. For those with the ambition and the funding, the hunt for the world's last living sauropod was officially on. The search would draw explorers, scientists, and adventurers from around the globe, each one convinced they were closing in on a discovery that would rewrite history. The moment the world learned that a sauropod might be swimming in the Congo, the race was on. While that race would peak in the 1980s, the hunt actually began much earlier. Following the groundbreaking reports from Captain von Stein zu Lausnitz in 1913, adventurers and big game hunters launched their own private investigations. One of the most famous early accounts came from the German showman Karl Hagenbeck, who wrote about a bizarre half-elephant, half-80s beast in his 1909 book, Beasts and Men. These early, scattered quests proved the captivating power of the legend, but they lacked the scientific focus needed for a proper search. The true spark for the modern era of the hunt ignited in the 1970s. It was then that James Powell, a herpetologist originally in Gabon to study crocodiles, became inspired by the writings of cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans. Powell started collecting local accounts of a large water creature known as the Enyamala. His detailed and credible research soon reached the desk of University of Chicago biologist Dr. Mokele, who recognized the potential for a groundbreaking discovery. This led to the pivotal expeditions of 1980 and 1981 under Mokele's leadership. While not the absolute start, they are widely considered the beginning of the most intense and public modern hunts. Mokele's expeditions, one of which was partly funded by the National Geographic Society, generated significant international attention, cementing the Mokele Mbembe legend in the Western imagination, especially after he published the book A Living Dinosaur. In search of Mokele Mbembe, Mokele's team found powerful evidence. Local witnesses consistently identified illustrations of a sauropod dinosaur as the creature. In 1981, the team even experienced something firsthand when a massive, unexplained wake rocked their boat on Lake Tele. Their guides instantly claimed it was the creature, but whatever created the disturbance vanished before the cameras could capture it. The intense focus drew other ambitious groups, sometimes with controversial motivations. Explorers like Herman Registers and Congolese zoologist Marcelin Agnagna launched their own quests. A Scottish explorer named William "Billy" Gibbons followed, driven by his creationist desire to prove that humans and dinosaurs had lived together. His goal was validation, establishing a pattern where predetermined conclusions often compromised objective science. The result was a frustrating pattern of failure. Expedition after expedition returned with the same frustrating combination: tantalizing stories, questionable photos, and failed film footage. Even the most advanced modern efforts failed. In 2018, a Danish expedition used high-tech sonar and DNA water sampling, but found absolutely zero trace of any large, unknown animal. For decades, the Mokele Mbembe lived perpetually just beyond the reach of the camera lens, always existing in the frustrating gap between what desperate people claim to have seen and what science could actually prove. But as the traditional hunt for the monster began to slow down, something changed in the Congo Basin. The sightings began to explode in frequency, forcing a terrifying new question. If the creature wasn't a living fossil, why were so many more people suddenly claiming to see it? The real monster emerges. For decades, the Mokele Mbembe was a whisper, a localized legend, an extraordinary claim that existed only in the remote corners where scientists hunted in vain. But in recent years, something changed. After 100 years of silence, reports of the huge, long-necked creature started spreading all over Central Africa. Suddenly, it wasn't just old hunters telling tall tales. The sightings were surging dramatically across the Democratic Republic of Congo, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic. A creature that was supposedly a myth was now being reported everywhere, showing up closer and closer to human settlements. This flood of new accounts should have been the moment the scientific community found their proof. But field biologists and conservation workers noticed something crucial about the people making the reports. The surge wasn't concentrated among the experienced forest dwellers, the people who knew every animal in their territory. Instead, the sightings were overwhelmingly coming from people in larger settlements, from farmers clearing new land, or from villagers venturing into parts of the forest that were suddenly retreating. Think about that. These were often people who had lived their entire lives without seeing the deepest parts of the jungle. They were suddenly being confronted with massive creatures they had never encountered before, in areas where such animals simply didn't appear until very recently. It was as if the forest was actively pushing something out. This creates a frightening contradiction. On one hand, the proof for the cryptid is stronger than ever, with more sightings, a larger area covered, and more people ready to share their experiences. On the other hand, the scientific case for a living dinosaur remains dead. There are no new bones, no clear videos, and no DNA evidence. How can a mythical creature be seen so frequently when all attempts to verify its existence have failed? The two facts simply don't fit together if we assume the Mokele Mbembe is a living dinosaur. To resolve this mystery, we have to stop looking through the lens of cryptozoology and start looking at the real-world crisis consuming the Congo. The truth of the Mokele Mbembe's apparent return is not a great scientific discovery. It's a symptom of ecological trauma. The creature isn't emerging from the depths of time. It's being pushed out by a much more powerful and devastating monster that is tearing the Congo Basin apart. We need to understand the real force driving this destruction. The surge of Mokele Mbembe sightings isn't a miraculous return of a dinosaur. It is the clearest sign yet that the Congo Basin is under attack by the true monster, an entity far more devastating than any prehistoric predator. This monster doesn't have scales or a long neck. It is industrial annihilation, driven by a mix of relentless global demand and local economic desperation. The scale of this process is difficult to grasp, and it comes in two terrifying forms. First, there is forest degradation, where the quality of the forest declines due to selective logging and human disturbance. Between 2000 and 2016, the area of intact forest decreased by 23 million hectares, a territory roughly the size of the entire United Kingdom. This degradation is not a complete clearing, but it is a massive weakening of the ecosystem, often serving as a precursor to eventual loss. Over that same period, the Congo Basin suffered the total loss of over 16 million hectares of forest cover, with the Democratic Republic of the Congo accounting for the majority of the devastation. This destruction is fueled by several factors. While commercial exploitation, like logging and mining, opens up the primary forest with massive roads, the single biggest cause of forest disturbance is actually small-scale clearing for subsistence and rotational agriculture. Whether it's a global company digging for the cobalt and rare earth minerals that power our modern technology, or a poor family clearing a small plot to survive, the cumulative effect is the same: the destruction of the ecosystem. This beast doesn't just feed on resources, it also feeds on human desperation and is exacerbated by underlying issues like weak governance and a lack of land security for local communities. The consequences of this destruction reach far beyond Central Africa. The rainforest is a massive climate regulator acting as a giant carbon sink for the world. It absorbs about 1.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually, helping to keep the entire global climate stable. As this natural system disappears, its effects ripple out, accelerating global climate change and making extreme weather events worse everywhere. The most terrifying consequence is the direct threat to global health. As human settlements push deeper into the untouched wilderness, the opportunities for animal-to-human disease transmission multiply exponentially. The same ecological disruption that is driving the modern Mokele Mbembe sightings is increasing the risk of the next global pandemic.
Animal that they call Mokele Mbembe, and he's this gigantic dinosaur-type brontosaurus animal. He's got a long neck.
Diseases like Ebola and monkeypox are perfect examples of how clearing the forest creates the conditions for devastating disease outbreaks. We're facing a crisis on every level: environmental, climatic, and public health. This devastation is not just a backdrop to the Mokele Mbembe story. It is the engine driving the monster sightings. The creature isn't emerging from the depths of time, it's being driven out of its home. When the magnificent giants of the forest lose their home, they are forced directly into our world, and in our fear and confusion, we mistake them for monsters. If the Mokele Mbembe isn't a dinosaur, then what are all those terrified people actually seeing? The answer is a tragedy wrapped in folklore. The sudden surge in sightings is caused by real, magnificent animals being forced into human spaces, where their appearance and behavior perfectly overlap with the ancient legend. The most likely suspect for the primary sighting is the forest elephant. Imagine a farmer, new to the edge of the deep forest, standing by a riverbank. A forest elephant approaches the water. Its long trunk, visible through the dense vegetation as it feeds, easily looks like a serpentine neck. Its massive, gray body, partially submerged in the murky water, matches the cryptid's elephant-sized profile perfectly. These creatures are masters of their original undisturbed habitat. They move along ancient, concealed paths and emerge from dense vegetation in ways that can seem instantaneous and almost supernatural to someone who has never encountered them before. Their sudden, silent appearance transforms a known animal into an unknown monster. The second factor driving the fear is the hippo factor. Local legend claims the Mokele Mbembe is aggressively territorial and overturns boats. If you want a real-life creature that fits that description, look no further than the hippopotamus. Hippos kill more humans in Africa than any other large animal. They are notoriously unpredictable, easily capsizing canoes and attacking without apparent provocation. An enraged hippo, suddenly displaced by degradation and forced to seek new waterways, perfectly embodies the legendary creature's aggressive and deadly behavior. The terror isn't only visual, it's acoustic. Field researchers have noted that the terrifying roars and bellows sometimes attributed to the creature are actually the powerful vocalizations of Western lowland gorillas. When these primates are displaced from their territories by logging and agricultural clearing, they produce calls of distress and alarm that carry for miles through the forest. To people unfamiliar with the deep forest and its sounds, these distressed calls are easily interpreted as the monstrous cries of a massive, unknown beast. It's the sound of animal desperation fueling human terror. This is the psychological mechanism at work, the filter of folklore. The Mokele Mbembe stories represent real encounters with real, magnificent, and often dangerous animals. But the chaos and trauma caused by the collapsing environment forces people to categorize these new frightening realities using the only framework they have: the ancient legend. They are seeing a creature where the forest used to be, and their culture offers a ready-made explanation. The true tragedy is that the living dinosaurs of the Congo Basin are not mythical relics, but magnificent creatures. The forest elephants, gorillas, and hippos, who are themselves facing extinction because of the monster we created. The legend of the Mokele Mbembe is no longer a historical curiosity. It's a living map of ecological disaster. The final choice. The greatest tragedy in the story of the Mokele Mbembe isn't the failure to find a dinosaur. It's the fact that we've been looking in the wrong direction while the real wonders of the Congo have been disappearing. The massive creatures being mistaken for the legendary beast are themselves facing extinction. Take the western lowland gorillas. These primates are the most numerous gorilla subspecies, with current estimates placing their population at nearly 362,000 individuals. Yet, they are classified as critically endangered. This dire status is due to the catastrophic threats they face. For instance, the deadly Ebola virus has caused massive sudden die-offs, wiping out up to 95% of the gorillas in certain localized areas, such as the famous Odzala-Kokua National Park. Forest elephants, whose shapes fuel the sauropod myth, have also seen drastic declines due to poaching. We aren't watching the return of a mythical creature. We are watching Africa's most iconic megafauna transform into folklore because they are dying, not because they are mysterious. This ecological cost is compounded by a deep cultural erosion. For thousands of years, indigenous communities maintained sophisticated knowledge systems passed down through generations. Their folklore wasn't just entertainment, it was a way to encode vital survival information about dangerous animals and areas to avoid. But now, the environment is changing faster than culture can adapt. The traditional wisdom is becoming useless because the animals show up in unexpected places, behave in unpredictable ways, and move through landscapes fundamentally altered by bulldozers. The legends of the Mokele Mbembe become meaningless when the pristine rivers and deep forests they supposedly inhabit are destroyed. The wonder is fading, and the mystery is being replaced by smoke and dust. Ultimately, the Mokele Mbembe sightings serve as a powerful early warning system for something far bigger. Every single time a villager mistakes a panicked elephant for a monster, it's a signal that the entire ecosystem is reaching its breaking point. Each encounter represents an animal violently forced from its natural habitat, struggling to survive in a world transformed too quickly. The crisis is real. It's happening right now. And it's fueled by the true monster that has been operating in plain sight for decades. That monster, the one we should truly fear, isn't hiding in the water. It is the force built by our own global consumerism and unchecked industrial expansion. It's the constant demand for cheap goods, cheap minerals, and cheap land that drives the chainsaws and the mining trucks. We spent decades and millions of dollars chasing the shadow of a dinosaur, convinced that the greatest mystery was a prehistoric relic. But the greatest, most terrifying mystery of all is how we continue to destroy the vital rainforest, an important part of our planet, while ignoring the very real consequences staring us in the face. We stand at a stark divide. We can continue to indulge in the romantic search for a fictional monster, a thrilling distraction, or we can finally acknowledge the true, devastating one and choose to protect the magnificent, endangered creatures who inspired the legend in the first place. The Congo Basin is still breathing, but the clock is ticking down to the final chapter. We stand at the edge of the collapse. Current projections are terrifying, suggesting that vast sections of the Congo Basin could be lost by 2050, with grave consequences for the local and global environment. If this happens, the mythical mystery will be lost forever, replaced by an ecological wasteland. As this displacement accelerates, the deadly conflicts between humans and large distressed wildlife will only become more frequent. The Mokele Mbembe sightings are a sign that animals are fighting for their lives, and the conflict will inevitably lead to loss of life on both sides. But here's the good news. This isn't a done deal yet. We have the power to change this ending. The solution lies in empowering the local communities who have protected the forest for generations. When they are given genuine economic alternatives, like sustainable development and support, these local populations become the most effective guardians of their ancestral lands. The true mystery worth solving today isn't whether a dinosaur lives. It's how we can live sustainably on the only planet we have. The choice before us is clear. We can chase the shadow of a fictional monster, or we can face the very real one that is devastating the critical lung of our Earth. The Mokele Mbembe is not a myth, but a mirror reflecting the tragedy of our own making. What are your thoughts on this terrifying revelation? Do you think conservation can win this fight? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, click on the next video on your screen. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries.